Donald Trump has quietly backed off his bluster about invading Greenland, seizing it by force, or acquiring it outright. After days of reckless threats aimed at Greenland and Denmark, threats that triggered global backlash and rare international unity against him, Trump suddenly changed his tune. While attending Davos, he rushed out a post claiming he'd reached some kind of deal involving Greenland, Denmark, and NATO. Except there were no details, no terms, no timeline. Just vague language about a framework for something that might happen someday. In other words, another Trump deal that exists only in his imagination. This is the pattern every time. He creates a crisis, watches the backlash explode, then pretends it's all been resolved without actually resolving anything just to save face. And yes, I'm relieved he says he's not invading Greenland, but his words don't mean much. At this point, who knows what he even means? What makes this worse is how transparent it all is. Trump keeps using the same empty phrases, a framework, a future deal, long term, while never explaining what the agreement actually does or who agreed to what. When reporters asked him directly whether the US would own Greenland, something he's repeatedly insisted on, he dodged.
It's a deal that everybody's very happy with.
Does it still include you? Does it still include the United States having ownership of Greenland like you've said you wanted?
It's a long-term deal. It's the ultimate long-term deal. And I think it puts everybody in a really good position, especially as it pertains to security and minerals and everything else.
How long would the deal be, Mr. President?
Infinite.
Well, there is
no time limit. It's forever.
And how would you ratify the deal?
There'll be money involved.
It's signed forever.
But you haven't signed anything yet, right?
It's a deal that's forever.
When pressed on the terms, he called it infinite. Infinite. No end date, no ratification, no signature, just vibes. That's not diplomacy. That's nonsense. Even friendly media struggled to spin it. One moment they were echoing his calls to take Greenland by force, the next they were trying to explain what an infinite deal even means.
So joining me now is former U.S. Ambassador to Denmark and Greenland, Carla Sands. Thank you for being with us here today. I don't know if you have more information than what we've been able to gather so far on the framework of this potential deal. What is your suspicion on President Trump described it as an infinite deal, a big win for all parties, which is an interesting framing considering earlier today he said, who in the hell in their right mind would want to lease or license presence on Greenland?
Yeah, I don't know what he's ended up with. I know that he said unequivocally that we had to own it. And I had thought it would be a COFA, more like a free association, but that's not what that is. So does it look more like our relationship with Puerto Rico? I'm looking forward to learning as much as you are about this new deal, that the framework is in place. But it's really encouraging. And of course,
officials and former diplomats openly admitted they had no idea what Trump was talking about. Neither does anyone else. Meanwhile, Trump continued confusing Greenland with Iceland in public remarks over and over again. His defenders rushed in to deny it, despite clear video evidence.
So we'll see how these negotiations continue. But I would, again, just point out that to everyone who thinks this is a very ambitious and perhaps crazy idea as it's being spun up in the media, this is something presidents have talked about for a long time. And look at the deals President Trump has been able to broker over the past year. The release of the Israeli hostages, 8 wars solved because of his negotiating skills. Anyone who doubts President Trump clearly has not been paying attention. Meeting with today and discussing with, and I know they were all very pleased with his speech. I was in the room, John, and it has rave reviews because the president just tells it like it is. And he came here with his America First vision on full display, talking about how the American economy is booming once again through massive deregulation, an energy boom, the president fulfilling his promise to drill, baby, drill. You look at the tax cuts he signed into law, all of these things coming together to put together a really exceptional American economy. And I think he's really inspiring a lot of leaders in Europe to take that same approach. The Green New Scam energy failed policies of Europe and mass migration are failing these great countries. And so I think the president really struck an inspirational tone with all of them today. But of course, that has yet to be seen if they will act accordingly.
At this point, it's not even about gaffes. It's about the normalization of chaos. Any other leader would be held accountable. Trump gets graded on a curve so generous it barely resembles reality.
Decades, But the problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. If we gave them the call, gentlemen, we are being attacked. We're under attack by such and such a nation. I know them all very well. I'm not sure that they'd be there. I know we'd be there for them. I don't know that they'd be there for us. So with all of the money we expend, with all of the blood, sweat, and tears, I don't know that they'd be there for us. They're not there for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. I mean, our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. So Iceland's already cost us a lot of money. But that dip is peanuts compared to what it's gone up. And we have an unbelievable future in that.
And all of this matters because these aren't just words. His threats had consequences. Countries took them seriously. Canada discussed defense plans. European allies prepared contingencies. Greenland's leadership warned its people to be ready to defend their sovereignty. This wasn't political theater to them, it was a real threat. While Americans are struggling, housing costs exploding, groceries unaffordable, jobs disappearing, Trump is playing games that destabilize alliances and shake global markets.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum, and we got a lot of breaking news for you this afternoon, and a market in America that is on fire. And here's why. Moments ago, President Trump, what a day this has been. You know, you go from the early part of the day, people with their hair on fire, leaders in Europe. Now you have President Trump moments ago posting this major progress in the push to take control of Greenland after calling for immediate talks at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Now, the president has posted this on Truth Social, quote, based on a very productive meeting that I've had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland and, in fact, the entire Arctic region. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. So this breakthrough, what looks like a breakthrough at this point, comes just hours after the president sent a very strong message about the U.S. economy, about the way to correct some of the economies in Europe, and the national security and regional security needs that he wants to address with the Greenland issue. This is the message at Davos earlier today.
Then he turns around and declares victory. Fox calls it brilliant. Stocks move, reality gets buried. This is what it always comes down to. Chaos first, consequences second, spin third. No accountability, no clarity, just noise.
Did it stand out to you that he said Iceland multiple times when he was talking about Greenland?
And that every time a windmill turns, it costs $1,000. A lot of stuff stands out. None of this is normalized. There's a normalization of deviancy and consciousness and comments and commentary. No other president, he's held to the curve. He's graded on a curve. I mean, it's really some jaw-dropping and remarkable statements that just, fly in the face of facts and evidence and common sense. So, but you've heard them over and over and over again. For the European audience, that may have been a new speech. My God, there wasn't anything new about that speech for the American audience. The only thing that was new is he said he's willing to negotiate, but wait a sec, that's not new either, because he's been saying we've wanted to negotiate for over a year.
But in doing it, I'm helping Europe, I'm helping NATO, and I've until the last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They called me daddy, right? Last time. Very smart man said, he's our daddy. He's running it. I was like running it. I went from running it to being a terrible human being. So what we have gotten out of NATO is nothing except to protect Europe from the Soviet Union and now Russia. I mean, we've helped them for so many years. We've never gotten anything, except we pay for NATO. And we paid for many years until I came along. We paid for, in my opinion, 100% of NATO because they weren't paying their bills. And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease. Number one, legally, it's not defensible that way. totally. And number two, psychologically, who the hell wants to defend a license agreement? Budget of $1.5 trillion. We're bringing back battleships. The battleship is 100 times more powerful than the great battleships you saw in World War II, those great, big, gorgeous ships, the Missouri, the Iowa, the Alabama. Because I thought maybe we could take them out of mothballs. They said, no, sir, these ships are 100, think of that, 100 times more powerful than those big, magnificent pieces of art that you...
The world pushed back, and that's why he folded. That's the lesson here. You don't appease this behavior, you confront it, you call it out, and you don't pretend it's normal. Because it isn't.